Welcome to the fifth episode, and we are continuing our discussion on data breaches and the legal aspects. And to have this conversation, I have with me my special guest, Thanuki, and today she is going to help us understand what actually is a breach notification and what is a breach notification requirement or requirements. Thanuki, over to
Right.
you.
Okay. We in the episodes below we focused on what are data breaches, and we mentioned several times about notifying people. So it was a requirement.
Yes,
We mentioned it very briefly.
correct.
So now in this episode, we need to focus on what is it? What is it that everybody is talking about, and what is the big deal about a brief notification, right? So um, a notification, as the word states, it is the process of informing the relevant parties. It can be the regulators, the affected individuals mainly, and any other entities when a data breach occurs, meaning personal, sensitive, protected information which has been accessed or disclosed or lost even without authorization. Uh, Something that we need to remember is that breach notifications are a legal requirement, and I also think that it's a part of like general best practices, even in terms of even in a cybersecurity context, uh, to have proper breach notification mechanisms in place. But from a legal perspective, it is a legal requirement. um, so if you look at what it is, it is set out properly in frameworks like the GDPR, like the California CCPA, in HIPAA, in the PDPA, and also Central Bank of Sri Lanka also has certain circular directives on breach notifications, which aims at essentially ensuring transparency. So a breach notification is essentially needed because you want to be transparent about what has happened. It is also necessary when we are talking about mitigating harm, and also it is crucial, it is important when it comes to enabling accountability. So if you are going to define it, we just to remind again, a data breach is something where it involves unauthorized access, acquisition, disclosure, loss, alteration of data. uh, it can be something where you had access to, and then you may not essentially in the beginning intended to do something wrong with it. It could be by mistake, it can be accidental, but we know how a data breach takes place. A breach notification requires the organization to report that incident to the regulator and or affected individuals within specified time frames, depending on the breach's severity and legal threshold. So that is very important. The timelines vary jurisdiction to jurisdiction as well. What is the purpose of this? Essentially, you want to alert authorities to enforce compliance and to investigate systemic risks. Now, sometimes certain incidents may not only affect your organization, it may have a systemic risk, which is a larger problem to deal with. And it is important that a regulator is informed in that kind of situation. So, if the best example of this is if there is any problem that occurs in a banking sector, immediately the regulator, which is the central bank of a given country, needs to be informed to ensure that this doesn't lead to a collapse of the system, which is quite possible. It can happen. And breach notification becomes extremely important in a situation like that. And then it also informs individuals who are the subject of the data breach so that they can protect themselves. It can be so that they are able to do simple things like change their password or monitor their accounts, or do take simple actions that are possible for them to take at that particular point of time. And it's important because it promotes accountability and digital trust, which is a very important topic today in the world today when we're talking about all these new emerging technologies. Digital trust is very important, and
Mhm.
this is a breach notification is the first step, I think, in the aftermath of an incident or a breach, to ensure that the organization address them transparently by promoting accountability. If you look at different frameworks, we can just quickly go over it. In under the GDPR, a trigger will be a breach of personal data, which is likely to result in a risk to individuals' rights and freedoms. So then who do we have to notify? They are the lead data protection authorities. So in the UK, you have the ICO, unless the risk is unlikely. And then if it is, in the different countries, in France, in Italy, you have the Italian, the French, the DPAs. In Sri Lanka, soon you will have a data protection authority here. So if there's a breach with personal data, that's the place where you need to be informing. And in California, you have the California Privacy Protection Agency, which you have to trigger investigations and do annual reporting with. The HIPAA, it's the Department of Health and Human Services in the US. So, like that, I mean, there are different organizations set up to uh, do the necessary escalation of breaches. Even the Central Bank of Sri Lanka is for significant breaches, I would think. And if personal data is compromised, and for payment card related breaches, immediately within 24 to 48 hours, critical incidents need to be reported. And I think there is also a requirement, if I'm not mistaken, to provide a detailed report within 5 to 6 working days to the central bank. So there are things like that. So breach notifications can take various forms. And let's say, um, let's not just talk about like the laws of a country and at that level, but if you look at just basically within an organization, you can have basic incidents within your organization. You need to make sure that your policies set up uh, the proper procedure as to how you escalate a breach. That's why you need to essentially start even before you think about the bigger data breaches, because if you have that as a practice from the the simplest of incidents, I think that is where, within your organization's culture, you will have this ability to escalate and take actions and be transparent, and also by virtue of that be accountable in the long run.
What I'm hearing is a very simple exercise every organization should adopt. Maybe when they see an incident, have a escalation metrics within the organization, then go through the process and determine whether the incident is confirming to have had a data breach. If there's a data breach, then what is the escalation process in terms of within the organization, and then with the regulators, and then with their customers? Right.
Correct.
So one in terms of notification, the other in terms of providing a detailed report to the required authorities.
Yes.
Right. So I guess that's what is required in essence, isn't it? So, but it requires every organization to subscribe to that one simple activity.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would add that
So,
purely on a legal front, I would think that this is not something that you should do because you have to do it, or is because like just another thing, another thing on my list. It shouldn't be a checkbox item.
absolutely.
It's something that it needs to be something of value to the organization and the employees in the organization, and anyone at the top as well. It has to be throughout the organization. You need to feel the importance of uh, disclosing, especially
Correct.
when because a breach notification is essentially you owning up to a possible mistake that has happened, or
So,
some form of oversight. And human beings make mistakes. And I think the moment we're able to um, accept this part of our humanity, I think we'll be able to embrace this idea of accountability and then go for breach notifications with ease without thinking of
absolutely.
it as a legal burden. You know what I mean? So
Correct. And
something
then
we,
also, you made a very important point or observation. Humans are weak.
yeah,
They'll make mistakes. And that's why the bad actors target the individuals,
for sure.
right? Their emotions and various other aspects, right? And we also have the tendency to react. So I think it is important for us as part of good corporate governance to build these processes within the organization and embed them into all the process so that we know exactly where we are good and where we are failing internally. And then that will also help us to go back and remediate those on a timely basis rather than let it drift. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was very enlightening. And I think it's a very important topic in terms of having a process in place to notify and also to communicate with the relevant stakeholders. So that's the discussion we had on breach notification and its requirements. Thanuki, thank you so much. And viewers, in case if you have missed our previous episodes, we've had 4 in the past, and all of them have been on specific topics. What is a data breach? And then the types of incidents or data loss incidents. We also spoke about the data loss or third-party data exposure. And we also discussed about unsolicited use of breached data. And what's coming up is where we're going to talk about what's in store for our future. So don't miss that out. So watch out for our next episode, which will be out soon. And to have that conversation, I'm again going to invite Tanuki for the conversation. Thank you so much, Tanuki. See you around.